The Nintendo Switch is 8 years old. With a combination of that and the Nintendo Switch 2 just around the corner, it's safe to say that the Nintendo Switch generation has come and gone. Fairly recently, I made a video of what I think are the best games on the Nintendo Switch. So today, I thought why not go over the opposite and look at what I think are the worst games on the Nintendo Switch. Honestly, when it came to making this list, it was super hard to come up with 15 games, as honestly the Nintendo Switch library is pretty good quality, so just know that when it comes to this list, not every game on this list is bad. But instead, they're just some of the weaker titles on the Nintendo Switch. I'm the biggest noob on YouTube, Crescendo, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like it and subscribe to the channel, that helps me out a ton. My goal is to try to reach 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and your subscription can help me get one step closer to that goal. While you're at it, if you want to talk to me and others about all things Nintendo, consider joining the Chris Discord server. The link is down in the description. With that established, let's go over the 15 worst games on the Nintendo Switch. At number 15, we got Super Mario 3D All-Stars. I've already made a video going into more detail on this game, so I'm going to keep this one brief. This game isn't inherently bad per se, but the lack of effort in this collection really holds back what could have otherwise been a great celebration of 3D Mario games if more effort and care were put into it. And the limited time sale still baffles me to this day. Yes, I get that this was for an anniversary celebration, but it was still really stupid regardless. Like I already said, this one is not at all a bad game. The Switch library is just so strong that I only think it's fair that a bare bones collection of 3D Mario emulations belongs on a list of the worst games on the Switch. Up next at number 14, we got New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe. This one suffers a similar problem to Super Mario 3D All-Stars, where it's not necessarily a bad game, but instead a lazy one. This game is a port of New Super Mario Bros. U and New Super Luigi U from the Wii U, and all they added to this port was Toadette as a character, where she's essentially another easy mode character on top of Nabbit. What makes it worse is that when playing New Super U in this version, if you're playing with 4 players, one person has to use one of the easy mode characters now, as Yellow Toad and Blue Toad now occupy the same spot. This game also just came out at a really bad time. By the time of its release, people were over the New Super Mario Bros. Series and wanted something new. The Switch was an opportunity for Nintendo to do this, but instead they ported New Super U on the Switch, which was a punch in the gut for those who wanted a new 2D Mario game, as at the time, we didn't know we'd be getting a new game for the Switch. This game is just kind of disappointing, as it's just a port of a New Super Mario Bros. Game and not really much more. Especially with how good ports can be, like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and Super Mario 3D World, this one was just severely underwhelming, and is definitely one of the Switch's weakest games. At number 13, we got Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, and number 12, Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. With this placement, you get a 2-for-1 deal, as both of these games suffer from the same issues that make me feel like that they deserve to be on this list. Starting with DKC Returns, this game at its core is not a bad game. Sure, Donkey Kong Country Returns isn't as good as its sequel Tropical Freeze, but it's still fun in its own right. The problem though stems from the fact that this game is just super lazy. It's basically just the 3DS version of this game upscaled for the Switch, and that's about it. This wouldn't be a problem if this game was like $30 to $40, but no, it's $60, having the same price as a new game. Just because of how outrageous this is, I feel this game is definitely in the lower quality side of the Nintendo Switch library. Sure, this is technically the best way to play this game, but I just can't justify the $60 price tag. However, I do think it's funny just how much Nintendo's been promoting Donkey Kong Country Returns HD though, as with how much they're promoting it, you'd think that this is a brand new game. No, in the case of Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, it's basically the same reasoning I gave for Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. I just preferred Returns over Luigi's Mansion 2 though, which is why it's slightly better than Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. Going into number 11 now, we got Yoshi's Crafted World. This game mostly suffers from having minor issues, but as they continue, they begin adding up, making this game as a whole not as good as it could be. Starting off, this game is super easy. I get that this game is kind of meant for a younger audience, but at the same time, just because it's for younger players doesn't mean it can't be difficult. Due to it being so easy, it just leads to this game being really boring. And the levels as well are just not super creative and feel uninspired. While playing the game, you could go through a level, and as soon as you complete it, you'd instantly forget what you played just because of how uninspired the levels here are. And the soundtrack here as well is just kind of mediocre. It feels really repetitive with similar themes being used throughout the entirety of the soundtrack, leading to there being almost no variety in the music. This one might be a hot take, but I'm not a huge fan of the art style of this game. I get they were going for an artsy crafty vibe with it, but when you look at this and compare it to Yoshi's Woolly World, I'd much rather take the game looking like that over what we got here. Overall, this game is just full of small problems that when put together make this game just kind of a mediocre game on the Switch at best. Especially when you take into account just how good the Switch's library is, it's safe to say that this is one of the weakest games on the console. At number 10, we get our first Pokemon game of the list, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. And spoiler alert, this won't be the only Pokemon game on the list. The gameplay here is what you would expect from a Pokemon game. It plays like previous games in the series, but now there's an open world in the game, taking the series in a more open direction, which is great. And the story here isn't bad either. Some would argue that this is one of the best stories in the series, and while I haven't delved super deep into the franchise, I can see where those people are coming from. The music in this game is also great. Now I've said some pretty positive things so far, so you're probably wondering why this is on the list of the worst Switch games. And the answer is pretty simple, the graphics and the performance. When I played this game at launch, it ran abysmally. The game runs at 30 FPS, which whatever, I don't care that much, but let me tell you, you'd be lucky if it stayed at 30 when you're playing. the frames drop a ton for no apparent reason. You could be in a cutscene or just wandering around an area with not much in it, and you'll get random lag spikes that would cause your game to slow down a ton. And there were also a ton of bugs at launch too. Some of them were really funny, but at the same time, there shouldn't have been so many bugs at launch. The launch of this game was so bad with the combination of performance issues and bugs that Nintendo had to issue an apology for the mess this game was, which is honestly super sad. And the graphics in this game as well, I just think that this game looks super ugly. I can't wrap my brain around what exactly makes this game look so bad, but with a mixture of pretty ugly character models, low-res textures, and Pokemon looking like they just ripped their 3DS models and upscaled them, you just have a game that graphically looks hilariously bad. Honestly, this game is one huge mess. If it wasn't for the gameplay at least being good and the story being strong, this game definitely would have ended up near the top of the list as one of the worst Switch games, but it was just barely saved up because of the positives. At number 9, we got Mario Golf Super Rush. Honestly, Mario sports games on the Switch were treated really bad, where they launch with little content and get free DLC updates later down the line. When it comes to Mario Golf Super Rush, this wasn't any different. This game, as with other Mario sports games on the Switch, just kinda lacks much in replayability. Once you play through the holes and play through the story modes, there's just not much else to do outside of that, with there not being many side modes. The story mode as well is kind of lacking. Previous Mario Golf games with them made them pretty creative, but Super Rush just kinda keeps it basic and honestly pretty uninteresting. All around, there isn't really much to say about this one. There isn't really much to do in this game. It's Mario Golf, so the gameplay is what you'd expect, but outside of that, it's just kind of a basic and generic game with not much to offer. Moving into number 8, we got Super Mario Party. Super Mario Party was marketed and hyped up to be the return to form game of the Mario Party series, after getting less than stellar games of the franchise for many years since ND Cube, or now Nintendo Cube, took over development for the series. While to an extent this game was a return to form, the execution of this game was really poor. The boards were really lackluster with very mediocre themes, with there some just having straight up bad gimmicks. And the boards also being grid-based didn't help at all either, as well as to the boards in the game being basically just squares, as well as smaller less to do in them compared to other boards in other games. And this game requires the Joy-Con and only one at that, meaning Pro Controllers and both Joy-Cons together are not usable, as well as Switch Lite owners not being able to play the game unless they bought a set of Joy-Cons. The side modes as well are severely underdeveloped, as it seemed like with this game, they were going quantity over quality with the content. And the economy is the most broken it's been in the series. Stars only cost 10 coins, meaning from the start you'd be able to buy a star on turn 1. The minigames award everyone coins even if you didn't win, and this leads to everyone having too many coins the entire game. All around, while this game tries to be the return to classic Mario Party, it lacks the charm and great gameplay of the games that came before it. Because of its lacking gameplay and it just being a disappointment in its execution, I think that Super Mario Party belongs on the list of the worst Switch games. Number 7 is 1-2-Switch. 1-2-Switch was one of the few games that launched with the console, and honestly it was pretty underwhelming. The game was kinda meant to be the Wii Sports or Nintendo Land for the Nintendo Switch, where it showcases what the Joy-Con controllers are capable of doing, and while it does do this, it does so in a way that isn't super interesting. I kinda see 1-2-Switch as a game you play once and never again. Maybe you have some friends over and none of you have played 1-2-Switch, but you have it on your shelf. You decide, since you guys have nothing better to do, to put the game in your Switch and play for about 20 minutes. After that, you're like, well that was fun I guess, and then you never think about the game again. That's what I feel this game is, the it was fun but never again game of the Switch's library. Add to the fact that this game was $50, where other games like Nintendo Land or Wii Sports, which are in a way similar to this game, were pack-in titles for the respective consoles, and you get what I feel is an overpriced tech demo for the Switch. While this game isn't a game that will have you hating it after you play it, its very little impact and just how forgettable it is why I feel it deserves to be on this list. At number 6, we got Detective Pikachu Returns. Honestly, I almost forgot this game came out until making this list for the video. I feel that of all the games on the Switch library, while there are some games from niche franchises on the console as well, this is definitely one of the most forgettable games on the console. The little improvement in graphics in this game, combined with the limited character animations in this game, makes it pretty hard to get invested in the game. The gameplay as well is pretty simple. While simplicity on its own isn't a bad thing, combine that with it being pretty repetitive, and it leads to a game that in a way feels kind of boring and uninspired. There really isn't much to talk about with this game. It's such a forgettable game, and especially for it having been announced so long before it actually released, the end result ended up being a game that in the long run won't have any impact on you whatsoever. Starting off our top 5, we got Everybody 1-2-Switch, and this game is a sequel to a game that no one asked for a sequel to, obviously being 1-2-Switch. And this game has more or less the same problems as 1-2-Switch. I feel this game tried to be a competitor to Jackbox games, where it's a game you can play with a party of people, but especially when compared to Jackbox, this game really falls flat with having minigames that are not super replayable or memorable. Honestly, there isn't much to talk about with this game. No one bought this game for a reason, it wasn't asked for by anyone, and its lacking honestly anything appealing is what puts it here on the list. Up next at number 4, we got Nintendo Switch Sports. Now when this game was announced it seemed promising, but the end product ended up being super underwhelming. Much like Mario sports games on the Switch, this one suffered from launching with very little content and then getting free updates later on. What's funny about this approach is they could have drip-fed a good number of sports every year after the game launched to maybe get people to come back to the game, but instead they only released 2 new sports, golf, which for some reason was delayed even though it just reused holes from the Wii Sports games prior, and basketball, which was randomly announced on a Nintendo Direct 2 years after the game launched for no reason whatsoever. And the sports at launch as well were pretty lacking. Yes, they were fun, especially bowling and tennis, but the fact that half the sports at launch, being tennis, volleyball, and badminton, all being net-based sports, really lowered the variety in this game. And the fact that there were only 6 sports at launch is laughably sad. The Mii's as well getting replaced by the new avatar Sportsmates was just a what the fuck moment. Like, you could still play as your Mii in the game, but it's clear that Nintendo wanted the main avatars for this game to be the Sportsmates, and they just don't look great in my opinion, as well as like the creativity and design that Mii's have. This game is quite literally the definition of marketing off of nostalgia. Nintendo knew that millions of people loved Wii Sports or Wii Sports Resort, and that they wished that they could experience these on the Switch, and Nintendo took that opportunity and absolutely butchered it with a half-baked game that is honestly one of the biggest disappointments on the Nintendo Switch. Now moving into the top 3 worst games on the Switch, we got Pokemon Sword and Shield, and this game was the first original Pokemon game to release on the Switch. This game has some of the same problems as Scarlet and Violet, where the performance at some points can be pretty bad, especially in the wild areas, and the graphics look hella weak when compared to many other games on the Switch, but I'll cut Game Freak some slack here as this was the first original Pokemon game for a home console, and this game honestly has a better visual style when compared to Scarlet and Violet. Honestly, there's so many reasons as to why these games are bad, so let's just go over a few of those. Firstly, the story was absolutely horrendous. Hands down probably the worst in the series to date. Team Yo was a really bad antagonist team, and were just more annoying than at all menacing. There isn't really any engaging story at all in this game, and when they eventually tried to make it more interesting, they locked it behind the post-game DLC, meaning you'd have to pay money in order to basically have any sort of post-game content. The new Pokemon brought in this game for the most part weren't interesting as well. There's a few cool ones here and there, but outside of that, the newcomers of Gen 8 were nothing to write home about. And this game is piss easy. There's basically no challenge to it whatsoever, and at least the game being hella boring because of it. And as I've already mentioned, there's basically no post content to this game outside of DLC. I don't care that they made DLC for this game, as I feel it's bound to happen no matter what, but the fact that there's nothing to do after the main campaign unless you bought the DLC is honestly petty of them. Honestly, for the first mainline Pokemon game on a home console, Pokemon Sword and Shield were severely underwhelming and disappointing. There are so many problems with this game on top of the ones I've mentioned in this video, and with the combination of all these factors, this game will forever go down as one of the Switch's worst games. From one Pokemon game to another, at number 2, we got Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. These games could have been the best Pokemon remakes ever, as Gen 4 is regarded as one of, if not the best generation for Pokemon, but when it comes to BDSP, they totally screwed up these remakes big time. When it comes to the new content in this release, there was basically nothing. At the very minimum, they should have included some Platinum content, and they didn't even do that. This game is literally just Diamond and Pearl copied to the Switch with a fresh coat of paint, and that's it. And this new art style as well is pretty bad. It's almost like they tried copying the art style of The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening, but did it bad. I mean, the cutesy style I guess works for the Pokemon series as it appeals to a younger audience, but at the same time, I just don't think it works for this game. There's also just a random difficulty curve at the end of the game as well. You can get through the 8 gyms pretty easily, and the Elite Four were a good challenge, but once you get to Cynthia, the game just randomly jumps in difficulty for no good reason. This game just in general was such a disappointment. Coming off of great remakes for Gen 3 with ORAS and then getting this trash is such a shame, as there's so much they could have done for a remake of one of the best generations of Pokemon, but instead they just did the bare minimum. Pokemon BDSP will forever be one of the worst Switch games, as well as one of the worst Pokemon games. Many people would put Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl as the worst game on the Switch, but due to my personal experiences with this game, I feel that the worst game on the Nintendo Switch is Mario Strikers Battle League. It follows the same problems as other Mario sports games on the Switch, but this game especially suffered from this. At launch, there was a roster of 10 characters, and it was the most safe and boring roster imaginable. And even with the characters that they added later, there weren't really any characters added to this game that were shocking, as they were all just kind of the mainstay Mario roster and nothing more. And the gameplay, while not being bad, is really repetitive. All the stadium types play the exact same, making the choosing your own arena gimmick of this game just for aesthetics and nothing more. And with there being nothing to change up the gameplay besides items appearing from time to time, and the hyper strikes that are just stronger kicks, all the games you play will just blend together and leave you remembering absolutely nothing of what you played. And the single player content is by far the worst of any Mario sports game on the Switch. Outside of playing against CPUs and doing the tournament mode, there's nothing you could do outside of online play. The other Mario sports games on the console at least had a story mode, but they didn't even include that here. And this game takes a lot to learn how to play. And while that could be fun as it means it's more competitive, it means that if you put it down at any time and don't want to play for a while, you'll be completely lost as to how to play this game. I haven't touched this game since launch week, and since then I haven't had the desire to go back, both because there's not much about this game that makes you want to come back, and also because I know as soon as I go back to it, I'd be completely lost and have no idea of what I'm doing. This game all around is honestly one of the games I dislike the most, and there are many bad games in the gaming world. While I have fun memories from playing this game, as I streamed the entire launch weekend with one of my friends, we got to the top 25 that first season, outside of those memories, this game was nothing short of repetitive, uninspired, and just straight up a really poorly designed game. If you're any of those people that also bought this game for full price, I'm so sorry for your wallet, as out of any game on the Switch, you'd have to pay me to play this one again. And that's my list of what I think are the worst games on the Nintendo Switch. Are you mad I didn't put The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom on here, even though it's just $70 DLC for The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild? Let me know my picks suck down in the comments, and while you're at it, tell me what you think are the worst games on the Nintendo Switch. The Nintendo Switch 2 Nintendo Direct is just under a month away, and just thinking about that, it's crazy to think that we're so close to the next generation for Nintendo. With that in mind, I hope you guys enjoyed me going back through the Nintendo Switch library and taking a look back at the best and worst games on the console. That's all I really have for this video though, but if you want to see another video by me, there's a video on screen now where I go over the best games on the Nintendo Switch, and if you missed that, I think you'd want to check that out. With that being said though, I'm the biggest nub on YouTube, Chris signing off, and goodbye Nub Nation.